Hello again, friends. It's Dave Nitzel from the Bar Shift, Barmetrix, and barandrestaurantcoach.com. Well, someone asked me the magic question, why don't you talk more about inventory control? You're an inventory control guy. Ask and you shall receive. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to get into a little bit about how our audits work, how we look at the data for our clients, and how we coach that back out. And I'm going to be showing you a former client. They sold the business, but it's a great example. When we started with these guys, they do really well. A lot of revenue, and they were making a lot of profit, and they were struggling with whether or not they believed they needed an inventory service. They kind of felt like they did. Their instinct was that they had a problem, but there was money in the bank and things were going reasonably well, so they just weren't sure. So I'm going to dive into what that experience looked like. I'm not going to share everything with you, but just some highlights that I think you'll appreciate. So this is a summary of stock usage report, or what I call an executive summary. This first page shows us what the cash sales were for the client. You see here, $38,000. You see their variance, which was 20%. So this was one of the initial stock takes that we did. This was a starting point for them. 20% is high for a starting point, high end of average. So it's normal for us to see someone losing somewhere between 15 and 20% of their stock, and that's from a retail perspective. So that retail value of 20% down here is $9,700 in sales. It's also important to note that you're not just going to get $9,700 extra dollars in sales if you pull that number down to zero, and you're not going to pull the number down to zero most likely. Our experience, or my experience, is you usually get somewhere between 25 and 35% of that revenue back in actual sales transactions. Down at the very bottom here, you see the wholesale value of that 20% loss, which is $1,500. So we look at that from a wholesale perspective, a retail perspective, a value perspective, all good stuff. Right here you see their cost of sales, and this is probably one of the reasons why they didn't feel like they had a huge problem. Even at 20%, they were doing a 19.8% cost of sales, or what we would call a poor cost. But their plan is 15.8%. What that means is, had they sold everything that they transacted via the PMix and had zero loss, they would have had a 15.8% poor cost. Now this place behaves a little bit like a nightclub, a little bit like a bar, and a little bit like a restaurant. It's a very unique venue. It does all three things just on different days and at different times. And they are in a premium spot. So they're able to charge a little bit more. They have high revenue, as you can see, and dare I say, they're accidentally successful at 20%. And you don't very often see, say, 20% loss and 20% poor cost is pretty rare. And that's why they would say, hey, I'm not sure if we actually need a service. We might be doing okay, only to find out, uh-oh, we're leaving almost $10,000 worth of sales on the table, or really more like $2,500, $3,500 worth of sales, but $10,000 in retail value. So that's really interesting stuff. So that's a quick look at the executive summary. Now what I'm going to show you is just a standard page on their liquor variance report. We're going into the heart of the report here. And up top, you're going to see some headers that show the previous dates, how much was purchased, the current stock take, how much stock was depleted, their sales, and then loss in units, ounces, cost, retail, and percentage. And as we scroll down here, you're looking for the big numbers, and you can see the 46 shots of Grand Marnier missing, 23 shots of Jägermeister. You see huge losses on peach schnapps, sour apple. That's probably because we're using way more mixer than what we intended to use per the recipe, and we haven't caught up to that, and people devalue schnapps and mixers and that sort of thing. Typically, it's not one of our high priorities. If we're dealing with mixers as the biggest opportunity in the business, we're in a really good place. Then you see Bowman's, how far off we are on Bowman's rum. So a lot of loss here from a liquor perspective. This is just one page. I'm going to skip here now and show you another page. And we're starting off with rum at the top. And what you're going to see here, and we're going to look at the tequila section. Another thing that we'll learn is down here at the very bottom, we see their well tequila, which shows 131 shots over. When it's in the black, that indicates we have too much. Well, how could we have 131 shots over? In this scenario, what's happening is we're ringing in all of our margaritas and tequila products as well, but we're pouring premiums. So the net effect of this, if you look at the bottom, is a $1,200 retail loss just in that category, simply from the trade-offs that we're making where we're not upselling or upcharging, I should say, on the premiums. Isn't that interesting? Not uncommon stuff for us to find. When you look at the totality of just liquor, so we're not looking at bottled beer and we're not looking at draft beer, we could, but I'm trying to keep this fairly succinct. We moved 5,817 units or shots of liquor for this period. We sold 4,481. So if I was standing in front of the group and we were having a meeting and I would say, hey, if I told you you were missing 1,336 shots per period, would you consider that an issue? Most of the time, people won't even believe that they're missing that many shots, but they are. When things get away, habits get hard to break, it gets to be a really interesting spot where you have a venue that feels like it's successful and feels like it's doing well, and people just start creating their own bad habits and no one's really checking in because they think everything's a-okay, and these things start to compound on each other, and next thing you know, right, it's a runaway bride. So in this scenario, 1,336 shots missing at a cost of $1,300, retail value $9,300, or 23% of their liquor. So these are the different ways that we look at the business from an audit perspective. When it comes to bottled beer, that's a one-for-one transaction, so there's no pouring involved. If we see bottled beer problems, that means that we're just not ringing things in. We're either knowingly or unknowingly giving away product. That's pretty easy. When it comes to draft beer is typically the most complicated because there's systems involved. We may or may not be giving it away. The system may or may not be pouring properly. There's an awful lot of people that still like to tip the glass and pour the foam down the drain, which baffles the mind. I've never understood why people think pouring inventory down the drain is a good idea. But I've talked about that in some other videos. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the liquor this time, give you a really good look. And to surmise, here's the deal when it comes to liquor inventory services. A few key points. One, they should pay for themselves. There should not be a scenario where a liquor inventory company doesn't pay for itself via the discoveries that they make, the labor savings that they provide, as well as, look, there's a lot of people that just hate doing inventory, so it's a little better job, so I'm going to put it in the turnover bucket, a little more compelling place to work when I don't have to come in Monday morning and count stuff for 3 or 4 hours. And frankly, what we find is people don't do good counts. I mean, they come in and they kind of eyeball it, shotgun it, and hope for the best. Nobody's reweighing stuff. Nobody's really putting the effort in to weigh all the kegs. They just make sure that the draft number comes out at a number that's acceptable to ownership, and on. And it really becomes a purchasing program. I've got another video on that. Do you have an inventory program or a purchasing program? If you want to hear more about that, check out that video. So that's it for today. I hope you found it a little educational. It's a quick look at how we break down audits. And until next time, my friends, take care.